So this is 179. He prohibited us from eating any swarming thing that might be without specification, whether a swarming thing of the water or a swarming thing of the earth, and that is his may be exalted, saying, you shall not make yourselves repulsive with anything that swarms. We give lashes for this negative commandment on its own, and it is similar to a general negative commandment. Hence, one who ate any of a swarming thing of the earth is lashed 2 sets of lashes, one on account of all things that swarm upon the earth that are repulsive, they may not be eaten, and one on account of you shall not make yourselves repulsive. One who eats a flying swarming thing is lashed 2 sets of lashes, once on account of all winged swarming things are impure for you, they may not be eaten, and one on account you shall not make yourselves repulsive. And if he ate an animal that flies and walks on the ground, such as that is a flying swarming thing and a swarming thing on the earth, he's liable 4 sets of lashes. And if along with this, it should also be a swarming thing of the water, then he'd be liable for 6 sets of lashes. The 5th of them on account of being an impure fish, as it is stated, you should not eat of their meat, and the 6th on account of you should not make yourselves repulsive, since it also includes a swarming creature of the water. We do not have another verse with us to forbid swarming things of the water besides you shall not make yourself repulsive with anything that swarms. And about these swarming things, they said in the Gemara, one who ate a putita is lashed 4 sets of lashes. An ant is lashed 5. A wasp is lashed 6. And this is the explanation that was explained by anyone that I have heard speak or whose words I've seen explain this statement of who ate a putita. But it is an incorrect explanation. It cannot be followed or sustained without upturning the true principles that are the signpost in the language of the Talmud. And that is that when you look into what we have said before, behold, you will find that they have made one liable 3 sets of lashes from one negative commandment, and that is, you shall not make yourselves repulsive. And it's already been explained that one is not lashed 2 sets of lashes for one negative commandment under any circumstance, as is explained in Chulin. We ourselves have already discussed this principle in Principle 9. We've explained it several times, and behold, I will bring examples for you of that which is to come in the future. Wow, this is, who knew we were hitting on such an important thing? But the true statement that you will not wonder about and will not push off is that one who eats a creature that is a flying, swarming thing, and it's also a swarming thing of the earth, is only lashed 2 sets of lashes, one on account of swarming things of the earth and one on account of flying swarming things. And if it is also a swarming thing of the sea, he's lashed 3, one on account of swarming things of the earth, one on account of flying swarming things. The negative commandment of which is also explicit, and one on account of you should not make yourselves repulsive. For it forbids every swarming thing, so that swarming things of the water are also included. So that general prohibition, which is you shall not make yourselves repulsive, should only apply once in this scenario, because that includes all the various situations, land, air, and water. For it forbids every swarming thing, so that swarming things of the water are also included in anything that swarms, by saying with anything that swarms. And if he ate a swarming thing of the earth only, then he'd be lashed only 1 on account of all things that swarm. And likewise, for a flying swarming creature, he'll be liable for only 1 on account of flying swarming things. And likewise, only 1 for swarming creatures of the water, on account of you shall not make yourselves repulsive. And this negative statement, including the swarming things of the earth, does not make it that he's lashed twice for swarming things of the earth. For even if there were 1,000 negative statements appearing for us about swarming things of the earth that were all explicit, he would still only be lashed once, for they are all repeated about the exact same content. And that's what he had mentioned before. If you have several statements that add a different element that apply to one transgression, then a person could be punished several times for the one thing. So you could have one act of eating, and that one act of eating would lead to several different sets of lashes. However, if the prohibitions are the same and they're just being said, they don't include anything new, then they don't add sets of lashes. You shall not, that doesn't mean that sometimes these are prohibitions. So you might do something that includes 5 different prohibitions, but you may not get 5 sets of lashes for it. You shall not eat a swarming thing of the earth. They shall not eat a swarming thing of the earth 1,000 times. It would only make them liable for 1 set of lashes. Could you see those that established this corrupted principle, holding that one who wears shotness be lashed twice because there's 2 negative statements about shotness? I have never seen them hold this. Rather, if another person were to say it, they would disparage him. In other words, apparently somebody's writing this, which he's upset about, and he is going off on it. But he's saying, again, that if a prohibition is repeated in the Torah, it doesn't add anything new, you're only liable for 1 set of lashes. Yet they do not disparage themselves about saying that one who eats a flying swarming thing or a swarming thing of the earth will last twice, once on account of a negative statement that is explicit about it, and one on account of the general statement, you shall not make yourself repulsive, because this part of the matter's explanation would not even be lost on a foolish child. Man, somebody upset him. But I will now return to the matter I started to explain and say that when it happens that a creature is born in a certain seed or a certain fruit and goes out to the exteriority, even though it has not touched the surface of the ground, behold, if one eats it, he is liable for 1 set of lashes, since a specific negative commandment appeared about it, as we explained in the previous commandment. But if it moved to the ground and walked on it, if one eats it, he's liable once on account of things that swarm upon the earth, you shall not eat them, and once on account of repulsive, they not be eaten. And if it happened that it is not fruitful and does not multiply, he would be liable for 3 sets of lashes. 2 previous mention, and a third of account of, you shall not make yourself impure through any swarming thing that creeps. Now, why that matters about fruitful and multiplying, not clear. And if in addition to this, it flies, he's liable for a 4th set of lashes on account of it. Winged swarming things are imparted for you, they may not be eaten. And if along of this, it would swim in the water, even if it flies, as is constantly seen with many species, he'd be liable for a 5th set of lashes on account of a swarming thing of the water that is included in the negative commandment, which is, you shall not make yourselves repulsive. And if along with this creature that comes to exist on its own from food is also a bird. Now, I don't know if a butterfly fits this. He would also be liable for a 6th set of lashes on account of it. You shall consider repulsive from amongst the birds that may not be eaten. Do not, now, we saw before that in order to be considered a fish, any creature that lives in water is considered a fish. In other words, that term dog, when the Torah is talking about what is the indication of a kosher fish, it means all aquatic species. So it includes shrimp, it includes clams, it includes anything that lives in the water. Even though it calls it fish, it means anything that lives in the water. this is essentially, these are like what we would call bugs, but it like in this category are like locust, for instance. There are certain, so the question is, would you think of locust as a bird? Or would you think of a butterfly as a bird? Or because we know about the fish, but we've never really had that kind of discussion about what qualifies something to be a bird, because he's open to the idea that there's something that could fall into two categories. One is that it is creepy crawling thing, about like that, like, which again we're thinking of more like a bug, and then it could also be a bird. So I'm not sure what constitutes a bird as opposed to schwatzim. Like a hummingbird is, or these little finches, they're very tiny. It's possible that you could find, um, you know, winged insects that are almost that size. Certainly on TV and in movies about the Amazon. I'm not talking about documentaries. You see them. Okay. And do not dismiss. Let's see. Well,
Rabbi,
yeah.
I may have missed this. I stepped away for a second, but the question was, you said anything that lives in the water is a fish?
As far as the Torah is concerned, yes. So
the crocodile a fish?
So there, I don't know if it's called living in the water. I don't know what it would call, if it would consider that living in the water. But if it's so, but it would like an eel would be a fish, according to this, as shrimp would be fish according to this, or I don't know, they might be called the creepy things that are in the water, but like clams would be, anything that's in the water has to have fins and scales in order for it to be kosher, which means that when the Torah uses the term dog, it seems to mean anything that lives in the water. And so, like, for instance, when it refers to the big fish in Yonah, so there are a lot of people who point out that that Yonah uses the word fish and that whales are not a fish, they're a mammal. That may not matter at all as far as Tanakh goes. Tanakh might mean, according to Tanakh, anything that is in the water it could be called fish. Now here they're talking that there does seem to be a distinction. There's something that is in the category of like creepy crawly stuff of the water. So it could be something like shrimp, or clams or something. Might not. They might have this other distinction, which they're also forbidden, but it might be a different subcategory. But it does seem in general that when the Torah uses the word fish, it's including anything where their primary life is in the water. And I guess if that was the case with crocodiles, I mean, I guess somebody could make it. I know there's people that have talked about this. Here, just give me 1 second. Might as well look at it. The other, again, the question is, all right, 1 second. I imagine like in a year or so, yeah, that that AI will just be in the class with us, and we'll just be able to say, what do you think? We won't even have to look it up. Okay. Rabbi Gershon Shaul Yom Tov Lipman Heller, better known as the Tosafot Yom Tov, after his classic commentary, this is from Chabad.org, after his classic commentary on the Mishnah, writes that when he was chief rabbi of Vienna, a certain Rabbi Aaron Rofe, Aaron the doctor, brought before him a Stincus marinus, described as a poisonous aquatic animal that had scales and 4 legs, but no fins, and asked whether it was kosher. Stincus is spelled Stincus, Stincus marinus. I'm assuming it doesn't smell good. Now, if it had no fins, would it not be obvious that it was not kosher? Not exactly, since the Talmud states that whatever has scales has fins as well. This means that halachically, if you find a piece of fish that only has scales on it and you don't see any fins, it's still kosher, since any fish that has scales also has fins. But it was clear that this Stincus marinus had scales but no fins. I'm thinking of The Life of Brian when I hear Stincus marinus for some reason. If this creature was not kosher, then what is the meaning of that Talmudic statement? And if it was somehow kosher, as perhaps the leg themselves were considered a sort of fin, how can we say that the Torah permits a poisonous fish to be eaten? In his final analysis, Rabbi Heller opined that there is a distinction between fish and creatures of the water, which dwell in the water but do not look like fish. The rule of the Talmud that whatever has scales has fins as well only applies to regular fish, but not to other creatures of the sea. Thus, although they too need both fins and scales to be kosher, if they have only scales, no presumption could be made about them having fins as well. Therefore, Rabbi Heller ruled that the Stincus marinus was not kosher. However, the debate about this creature raged on for many years. Some rabbis were of the opinion that there is no true halachic distinction between creatures of the water and regular fish. The rule that whatever has skins has fins as well applied to this creature as well. Thus, in all likelihood, this creature either at one point had fins and was therefore, in fact, a kosher creature. And to the question of poisonous creatures being kosher, they argue that wasn't really a question, as there are many poisonous plants that are technically kosher. Yet others were of the opinion that not only is there a distinction between fish and creatures of the water, but the kosher fish signs also do not even apply to creatures of the water that aren't truly fish. Therefore, even if these creatures would have both fins and scales, they still would not be kosher. Consumption of these creatures would be a transgression of the prohibition. Do not eat the swarming creatures of the water. So at this point, he is setting up 3 possible opinions. Opinion 1 is anything in the water is called a fish. And as long as it has scales, it is kosher. Because if it has scales, according to the Talmud, it would have fins. So that opinion, anything that's in the water is a fish, no matter what it is. And if it had scales, it would be kosher. The other next one is there are 2 types of creatures. There are fish and there are swarming, creepy, crawly things of the water. When it comes to fish, those signs are an indicator of what is kosher. But when it comes to the creepy, crawly things, they are not kosher, no matter even if they have skins, scales, and fins. And then the third opinion would be that there are 2 distinct elements of the sea. There are fish and creatures of the sea, the kind that we're talking about in the Rambam. But if those other ones do have scales and fins, they would be kosher. So those are our three options. Okay, it should be noted that Rabbi Moshe Sofer, known as Chassam Sofer, writes based on the opinions of various experts that what is referred to as the Stincus marinus isn't really a creature of the water at all. Rather, it's a creature that lives next to the water and occasionally jumps in, similar to a frog or lizard. This being the case, the whole debate is essentially moot, since it isn't in the category of fish, but rather a crawling creature of the ground, which has a different criteria for it to be considered kosher. Thus, it would seem that what has been termed Stincus marinus, which in Latin means aquatic skink, S-K-I-N-K, is actually a misnomer, according to some, and it's actually Skinkus skinkus, aka the sandfish. While the above is only a short overview of the controversy surrounding the Stincus marinus, it helps illustrate that there are basically three opinions regarding creatures of the water. They are just like fish. If we observe that they have fins and scales, or even just scales, they would be kosher. They're different from fish. Fins and scales render them kosher, but we cannot apply the rule that whatever has scales has fins as well. They're not at all fish, but rather creatures of the water, and they are in a distinct category, and the kosher fish signs don't apply to them. So what about shellfish? So shellfish, they're for sure not kosher. It's just a question of what category do they fit into. Now, what about the
Rabbi, so you're saying if they have scales, no fins, they can still be kosher?
According to one opinion.
Mm-hmm.
According to two opinions, they would not.
All right.
Oh, no. According to two of the opinions, they would not. I just want to see here. I'm assuming, based on what they just said, that the alligator would be like the frog. They're not considered creatures of the water. Just gonna assume that. Do you not love that name, Stincus marinus? Did you ever see Life of Brian? There's a very humorous scene there. I'm just gonna see if there's anything. Yeah, so here, there's OU Torah or Sameach. I want to see where this is from. Didn't realize. This is awesome. Stincus marinus, National Museum of American History, Wikipedia. Skinkus, the sandfish skink. The sandfish or common skink. Oh, here we go. This is who we wanted, Natan Slifkin. Oh, darn. Let's see if we get it. Okay. Oh yeah, so he completely dismisses this. All right, let's see what he has to say here. So he brings that whole thing that Rav Yom Tov Lippman Heller said that this Rabbi Aaron the doctor brought him the Stincus marinus. All right, the fact that the Stincus marinus had legs and would thus not be zoologically classified as a fish does not automatically help. The Torah does not follow the classification system of modern zoology, and hence bats are listed amongst the non-kosher birds. In other words, bats are considered a bird, but that's not how zoologists think of them. They think of them as a mammal. Still, Rabbi Heller proposed this as a possible solution, suggesting that it is classified as an aquatic animal rather than a fish and is not part of the Torah's discussion. He also suggests another possibility, that it is a hybrid creature produced after Talmudic times, and thus not included in the Talmudic principle that every fish with scales also possesses fins. But Pri Chadash considers both of these explanations difficult and answers instead that the Stincus marinus must indeed have had fins at some early stage, and that it is indeed kosher. Rabbi Yonasan Eibschitz, on the other hand, is not bothered by the Stincus marinus at all. He explains that, like all such principles, the Talmudic principle that every fish with scales also possesses fins is simply a general rule covering the majority and could have exceptions. As it turns out, there's an even simpler solution to this problem of the Stincus, later clarified by the Chassam Sofer. So he's watching, he's actually, Natan Slifkin is actually looking at one of these while he's writing about this. And he has it in a vivarium, is not only not a fish, it's not even an aquatic creature. It is a lizard from the skink family, known by the Latin name Skincus skincus. I was able to confirm this identification from 19th century works which refer to an animal by the name of Stincus marinus and which say that it has long been known by this name. Furthermore, this lizard perfectly matches the description given by Rabbi Heller. The widespread legends of skinks possessing a poisonous bite or stings are baseless, but certain skinks are toxic if ingested. Skincus skincus was widely used in pharmaceutical preparations and is also sometimes known as Skincus officinalis. So he, let's see here. He thinks this could have only happened because he didn't see a live one. If he had seen a live one, he would never have thought that it was an aquatic creature. On July 17th, the same day that this is Natan Slifkin again, on July 17th, the same day that I received my sandfish, the major science news outlets also ran a report about a breakthrough study on sandfish. It had previously been thought that the sandfish swam through sand via a swimming stroke resembling the front crawl, pushing the sand behind it with its feet. But Daniel Goldman of Georgia Tech, in a study published in the journal Science, showed that this is only when they first enter the sand. Goldman discovered that as soon as sandfish is submerged beneath the sand, it tucks its legs and swims to the sand by undulating its body like a fish. According to Goldman, the results demonstrate thus burrowing and swimming in complex media like sand can have an intricacy, et cetera, et cetera. So the sandfish truly does deserve its name. It is not at all surprising Rabbi Heller was told that it was an aquatic creature. Indeed, the idea of an aquatic lizard is not at all impossible. The Galapagos Islands are home to marine iguana. The extraordinary secret of the Stincus is that you don't have to be a fish in the water in order to swim like one. Okay, so Stincus marinus got a lot of attention, and it allowed us to explore the issues. And so I'm glad I have been educated about these other options, because not long ago, I was studying Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, which is a midrash, and it essentially suggested that anything in the sea is a fish. But now we've seen that there's this category called swarming things of the sea. So 2 out of 3 of those options mentioned in the Chabad.org article suggest that there are 2 different categories. There's fish, and then there's swarming things of the sea. So now our question is there such a thing for birds?
Most of the fish in the sea that swarm are the ones that, in schools. And the kosher fish don't swarm. They swim separately unless they're babies.
Is that true? Well, I mean, I don't know. When you say swarm, do you mean something more than
a school of fish? When you see
there's never a school of tuna?
No, not unless they're babies.
Well, I never heard that as a distinction. That's interesting.
I Googled, do kosher fish
swarm?
Yeah, something like that.
And
do
what did it
kosher
say?
Fish swim in schools?
Yeah.
Is what I Googled.
Yeah.
And they tend not to. They tend to swim alone.
Now, tending is
Well,
not.
because when they're babies, they swim together. But as they grow up, they separate.
Now, did you do that with an AI or did you actually get an article?
I Googled it and I went from there. Oh, then I started.
Did you go to an
I got the
article?
OU and Safaria and.
But did you actually see them talk about it?
Yes, many kosher fish are known to swim in
What about
schools.
what? Yeah, many kosher fish are not like herring.
Kosher fish
Sardines.
requirements, according to Jewish dietary laws, a fish is considered kosher if it has both fins and scales that can easily be removed without tearing the skin. Schooling behavior. Schooling is a natural behavior for many fish species where they swim together in coordinated groups for various reasons, including protection and improved foraging. Kosher status and behavior. Whether or not a fish schools is not likely related to its kosher status. The kosher determination is based on its physical characteristics. But if you keep going on, you find that the Talmud suggests that a fish swimming upstream is by definition a kosher fish, who speaks to the symbolism of fish and their ability to move against the current. And then if you go on and on, they will list the fish. They list
But like,
the fish
for instance, herring is kosher and they swim in schools. Sardines are kosher and they swim in school. Mackerel are kosher and they swim in schools. And here in this, but this is, you're saying tuna is only when they're young, but anyways, though, so there would be exceptions to this.
Yes.
You're just
there's
saying
always exceptions.
generally. Okay.
Yes.
But anyways, here, so swarming may not, swarming alone doesn't make something not kosher. Creepy crawling or something doesn't necessarily make it not kosher. But
you had a lot to say about the stinkers. What do you call it?
Oh yeah, they brought it up again.
Oh yeah, okay. OU Torah does, Safaria does, all of them.
Okay, all right. So now let's just see how he ends this. All right, let's see. We were one of the. And a wasp that also comes to exist from rot is, in addition to these, a bird as well as a flying swarming thing. So you see, they're calling flying insects a bird. The Rambam is calling it a bird because he's saying a wasp is a bird. It is only among fools that it is impossible that the ant or wasp or other types of birds and swarming things come to exist from rotten food. They have no knowledge of natural science, but rather think that it is impossible in all of the species that one come to exist from another except through a male and a female, since That is what they see. I've already explained to you that the content that you must examine and determine to know that a person is liable for eating a certain creature, so many sets of lashes. Another one is liable for a lesser amount, and is made clear to you from these verses that we do not look for a requisite size from one who eats an entire creature. So it doesn't matter how big they are. But here he is suggesting, he seems to be on the side that you can have spontaneous generation for a wasp. And that only fools think that's impossible. Is only among fools that is impossible that the ant or wasp or other types of birds and swarming things come to exist from rotten food. They have no knowledge of natural science. How do you like that? Yeah, so it doesn't matter how small they are. Rather, even if he ate a small mosquito, he's lashed 3 sets of lashes on account of a swarming thing on the earth, on account of swarming thing that crawls, and on account of flying swarming things. And behold, also said, one who delays his orifices, transgressions on account, do not be repulsive, which means if you don't go to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom, it might be a biblical transgression. One who drinks water from the horn of a bloodletter, and that is a tool for drawing out, transgresses on account of, do not make yourselves repulsive. So al teshaksu, do not do bal teshaksu, do not do repulsive things. So included in repulsive things is not going to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom, drinking out of disgusting equipment, and other things, eating things that are disgusting. So some people say, for instance, even though the goldfish is technically a kosher fish, swallowing a goldfish whole as part of a fraternity exercise might violate Bal Teshaksu, do not do disgusting things. You're not liable for lashes in these cases, for the simple meaning of the verse is only about swarming things. But we do strike him with lashes of rebellion. So you're going to get rabbinic lashes for this. Behold, it's already become clear to you from all that we had proceed, that we have indeed only taken the prohibition of the swarming things of the water from this verse, which is, you shall not make yourselves repulsive, for no specific prohibition appears about this besides this, and understand this. So again, we have been talking about insects. He has separate prohibitions for insects of the ground and insects of the air, and a general prohibition about eating things that swarm, which he also said tells us not to eat or drink repulsive things in general. And somehow the combination of these, with the combination of these things, you could get up to 5 lashes, sets of lashes for eating certain creatures. We also saw from here that according to him, a wasp is a bird. And also that he believes that there are insects that can come from spontaneous generation. So that was very fruitful, that conversation. I look forward to studying some more with you guys. Who knows what will come up tomorrow? Stinkus marinus came up today. Who would have thought? All right, be well.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.